Mono. Of course, a very terrible situation, I must say. Then, I mean, we need to actually understand the real situation on ground and the chances that others that are still in captivity would be rescued, even as we understand that security operatives are already on top of the matter.
It really was an unfortunate incident. It was just at the beginning of the year. Zango is not really far from Ilokoja, which is the city of the government. So, and then it's quite shocking for most persons. You know, when the news started trending on Facebook, there was a lot of information. Oh, it's not true, and it is true. And I thought to myself, I can't be in the city center and not get the facts of what actually happened. News Central was the first media organization to actually get into the community to speak with the residents, and you could just feel the free air, and you could see from the location of that particular place where the incident happened that this was planned and it was well calculated. You know, one of the residents that spoke, the first lady, she told me that they were dressed up, you know, in Fulani attire, but they could speak clear English. So that tells you that there is just a whole lot of things going on. And of course, the security operations are trying to get down to the integrity of how to uncover these persons, you know, as she has described. So they could speak fluent English, and that is just concerning for the community. And the second woman, you know, she recounted that back in 2019, she was abducted, and they had to pay a ransom before she was rescued. And talking about the chances of their release, the security operatives have been reaching out to the police here, but it's not been picking calls of journalists. I also cross-checked to some of my colleagues to get some first-hand details. And I also called back just a couple of minutes to the show. I called the family members of those who their loved ones were abducted, and they told me that they're still waiting for the security operators. They're still checking on them to get feedback about the fate of those who were kidnapped. It's really, really painful, and thankfully no life was lost, but it was really a scary situation. I mean, to look through somebody's house and see a bullet pierce through the window. They were trying to peek in, and the bandits, they shot into the house. It went straight into the living room before they abducted that elderly woman. You know, she was abandoned because she was too old, I think, to keep up with the pace. And the security operatives were able to find her by the roadside and bring her back home. And then she was so traumatized, the trauma alone. She was even trying to pick up her sentences. The interview I was conducting with her, her daughter-in-law had to interrupt because she was really finding it hard. It was like she was just lost in the whole process. Yet to fully recover from the trauma of the incident. And I mean, I can just tell you, Peter, I spoke to some of the residents there here, even in Lokoja, which is very, very close. I mean, you would almost think that Zango community is part of Lokoja and Rikon.
Yeah.
The truth is, Zango is under the local government area.
So I was going to come to that, Mono. I mean, it's very jolting and traumatizing to see people experience things like this. But then if you're going to describe the terrain or that particular community, how remote is it? And how far is it from security? You know, one would think that communities like this would have probably local vigilantes or people that would be, form a security formation around those areas to ensure that there's a little bit of safety in places like that.
Nathan, a vigilante office is not very far from that community, although that community it's really inside, so it's not as if it is on the outskirts, maybe just very close to the main road. You would have to go in, but not too far, I will say. So I believe security operators, it wouldn't be difficult for local vigilantes to actually get to that particular point, because the residents told me that after the security had come to see the situation of things, they had told them to get local vigilantes to actually parade that area. Because if you look closely at the visuals later on, you will discover that the places where these houses are, it's very close to a hill. There's like some rocks just at the back of those houses. So they are just facing the bush. So it won't be very easy to actually find your way. I mean, and I think that is why it was very difficult for the security operatives to actually track the movements of the bandits, because these areas are just very, very close. They're just close to the bush. So it goes on and on. And from what I heard from the residents, they move fast, they search the bushes close by, but they could not recover the other persons that they abducted. And of course, efforts are still on to actually see if they can rescue those kidnapped. Back to you, Jacob.
Well, we actually hope that a lot of efforts will be put in place to see that these people are rescued and brought back home intact. Mono, definitely we'll try to check back with you to get more details as regards the development on this.